Hi everyone, it's Allen with Earthglow. Welcome back to another new video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you all how I make candy cane lane vessels. And I am starting off with 4 cups of cement all into one of these wonderful silicone buckets that I'll have linked in the description box for you. Next, I am going to be putting 2 tablespoons of titanium dioxide into this second silicone bucket. And I love adding titanium dioxide to cement all because it tends to give it just a slightly lighter color, and it just can really look nice depending on what you're going for. So in this other bucket, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of Direct Colors number 101. It's going to produce this absolutely beautiful red color. And to me, it looks just like a candy cane, so it works perfectly for this video, and I'm absolutely obsessed with their pigments in general for concrete candles. I am still testing them out in Hydrostone, but so far the early results look really good. The next thing that I really like to do is to mix in my dry pigments with my cement all before adding my water, and I just find that it will produce a more even color. You still can get some clumps of pigment, so you really do have to mix super well both with your dry pigments and once you add in your water, but I find in general that mixing in with the dry concrete just helps to minimize it. Now in the future, you're going to notice that these types of videos I will still plan to upload on YouTube, but exact details with the formula will be on my Patreon. So it just costs a few dollars a month, and it helps me be able to continue producing this content for you guys. But one really cool thing about concrete is you're able to get so many unique colors without buying all these separate vessels. Because I know vessels can really get expensive, especially when you have to buy them in quantity with the shipping and everything. And if you want that variation, doing concrete candles is a really easy way to get that variation in your vessels. So you just saw me add in that distilled water there. Any distilled water will work. You can see how much dust this cement all creates, which is why you absolutely have to wear I would say an asbestos grade respirator, at least an N95. But basically something that's gonna keep that fine particulate out of your nose and lungs. But yeah, you saw me add that water in, and I have done this so many times. I have made thousands of these vessels at this point, you guys, that I kind of know how much to add by the feel of it. I do believe that the number on the bag will tell you to use 4 parts cement to 1 part water, and I tend to use much more cement to water personally, but you are able to do whatever you want kind of within those safe areas. You just want it to be pourable. There's so many people who talk about like pancake batter, smoothie batter consistency. Don't get tripped up by that. You just want the consistency to be thick enough that it's going to not be runny like water, but definitely not so thick that you're unable to pour it. Now, these pigments, you will see that if you purchase them, there's a lot of different companies that have concrete pigments. I know Glob Marble and Direct Colors are 2 popular ones, but there's definitely other companies too. And if you add less pigment, you'll obviously get a lighter color. And you might follow this formula exactly like I'm following it, but get different results. And if that is the case, you are gonna want to decrease your water, because you're probably working with a slightly more runny mixture than I am, which is why your color is coming out a little bit lighter. But I am just taking the time to really work out as many clumps as I possibly can. It is gonna be virtually impossible to get all of them out, but you just do the best you can, and I promise you that you are gonna get absolutely beautiful results, and people are going to be in love with your vessels. If you all can hear crickets in the background, it's just because I make these in my garage and I have the garage door open. This video was actually filmed back in October because I had to stop making concrete vessels in the wintertime. But I have my garage door open and so you can hear the crickets. Anyways, for today's video, I'm going to be using the 3-inch tulips from Modern Craft Labs. And I just kind of get both colors together and kind of add a little bit of each. You can definitely play around with how you make these. There's so many beautiful creative patterns that you can come up with. And I actually use a little tool. You can see for small clumps like that, it's absolutely fine for them to go down. But if the clump is too large, I will physically remove it just because it's going to cause almost like a wet spot on the side of your vessel. So this batch with the cement all is probably a little bit too big for a beginner, but you can absolutely use the same measurements and just reduce your batch size a little bit. But once you get the hang of it, you are able to kind of scale your process this way. So I, with most of my colors, tend to like to use more of the color than I actually do the white, just because that's my personal preference. But you could absolutely use equal parts of the color as well as with your white. I will also link this tool below that I am using. It is actually made of silicone, which is super nice because you can keep reusing it. And just like with the silicone bowls, you are able to break off the concrete after you have used it once and just keep on using it again. Absolutely love anything like that that is sustainable. Modern Craft Labs, I would say, is probably my favorite place to get the concrete molds. I have found that the molds I've purchased from them hold up so well. Like, cement is probably the hardest material on these molds, and yeah, they just hold up incredibly well. I've made so many candles with these molds. I've had them for like 3 years and they have not even shown signs of degrading at all. So, very impressed. So I am just going in and pouring all these. This is the part that gets challenging. The more that you pour, the thicker the batter gets. Now, if you do really use a very, very, very like thick consistency like I do, you can add a touch more water to your batter, but just keep in mind that you're also going to affect your color if you do that. So ideally, you just get really efficient with your process and you're able to pour them relatively quickly. Now, I am speeding this up at 4 times, so I'm not quite pouring them as quickly as you're seeing here. But yeah, this can be a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend putting on some nice background music and just enjoying yourself. The one thing that is challenging about concrete is wearing the mask the whole time, right? Because sometimes in the summer for me, when it's really warm out, I don't want to do that, but you absolutely have to because of that silica. So after I get all these vessels poured, I go around and I just remove anything that I can with a paper towel. And then this is just about 3 to 5 hours later. I tend to like to let my cement all sit in the vessels for at least 3 hours. I know some people demold at 1 hour. That is just not me at all personally. But what I like to do is kind of get them all loosened up around the edges. And after that, I will go back around and I will then pull the silicone about halfway. And then after I've done that, I'll kind of go back through and take it all the way off. I find the best way to get the silicone off with the 3-inch tulips is to use both hands, but it definitely definitely is an easier mold in general than most all of my other molds are. Like the 4-inch tulip is much harder to demold, and definitely the Amazon molds that I've gotten in the cylinders are very challenging. So if you're looking for an easier mold, an easier one to get out of the mold, the concrete, I would definitely recommend the 3-inch tulip from Modern Craft Labs. I'm curious if any of you have tried the Shape Makery one, what you all think of that. I apologize too for the camera shaking a bit. My tripod, I kept bumping it in the garage. So, oh my goodness, I'm so happy with how this first one came out, you guys. It just totally gives that peppermint swirl aesthetic that I was after with these candles. Oh my goodness. This is the most fun part. Obsessed. And each one, as I always say, it's going to have a slightly different character. And it's really important to make sure your customers know that. And a lot of times they are absolutely fine with it. But for people that want a super uniform product, concrete just, it's not where it's at. There's going to be so many beautiful nuances. And that's what makes the product unique and special. As someone who's made thousands of these vessels, I can tell you all that it never, ever gets old unmolding them. You're like a little kid in a candy shop each time you unmold a vessel. Like, you never know what you're gonna get, right? You obviously have a very clear idea when you're pouring, but oftentimes it just comes out even better than you could have imagined, is what I find with concrete. I mean, that's not always the case, but oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with these. So what I'm going to be doing is using a craft label on them, and you'll see that at the end of this video when I make these into candles. I'll also have that filmed for you all too. So you'll be able to see how I go about labeling these. But this is actually the 4-inch here, the 4-inch tulip from Modern Craft Labs. And I just made one in this just because I wanted to, but you could absolutely, make more. You could do the batch however you want. I'm just sharing the ratios that I use of the individual components. But this is a 4-inch tulip, and this will hold, I want to say it's about 13 ounces of wax. It's quite a bit. So it's almost twice the size of one of the 3-inch in terms of the fill. So we are going to be making some candles. This is obviously weeks later after I have let them fully dry out. You can see the color variation. It's just like gotten a little bit more of a pale tone, but it's still that beautiful, I would say, candy cane red. And I have added an earth safe sealer and preserver. It's called a preserver slash sealer. I've added 2 coats of that to the inside as well. And obviously, after you do that, you want to make sure you wait at least 24 hours before making a candle. Ideally, like 3 days after you do the seal. So it's quite a process. After you make the vessels, you have to wait for those to fully dry, which, is about, I would say, 5 to 7 days. And then the sealant, and then for that to fully dry, and then you're ready to pour the candles. So in these ones, I am actually using IGI 6006, and I am also using a CDN number 6. So it's a really, really versatile wick series, and it's probably become my preferred wick series for most all the candles that I make. And the fragrance that I'm using today is a custom Earthglow fragrance that is a blend of 2 different oils. So it is going to be Candle Science's Peppermint Eucalyptus blended with Flaming Candle's North Pole. And this produces my absolute favorite peppermint scent. I am just obsessed with this scent. I've worked for so long to perfect um, like the peppermint aesthetic that I wanted to capture with this candle. And so I found a lot of good, just straight peppermint essential oil like scents. And I found a lot of um, good blends with peppermint, but not just a straight like candy cane type of a scent. It seems like something that would be really basic. And there's even fragrances, like I know Aztec has one that's called Twisted Peppermint, but it does not capture that aesthetic in my opinion at all. Like it's good, but I'm telling you guys, if you blend these two oils, and I'll have the exact blend that I use on my Patreon, um, it's unreal. And the fragrance throw, oh my gosh, you guys, it is incredible. So just going through and topping off these candles after I have them all initially poured. And you will get some bubbles if you do use the piston funnels with this, but it's super easy to get rid of those. All you have to do is take a creme brulee torch on the very lowest setting, like not even a setting. Just literally do that. And they just disappear before your eyes. This is a really, really cool time lapse where you're able to see how the sinkholes begin forming with 6006. So if your container is taller than it is wide, you're going to get them. And actually, I went in there with a chopstick, and it was in a time lapse. But those larger holes that you see at the top, I was poking relief holes with a chopstick, and that allows me to basically get less sinkholes. But then what I will have to do is go over them with a heat gun. But it's just one of those things with 6006 that you have to do. And honestly, guys, every wax has its pros and cons. 6006 has a lot of pros, but one of the cons is that you are going to get those sinkholes. Now, if you do use it in like a tin that is wider than it is tall, or really any container that's wider than it is tall, you might not get them, but it's definitely something that is challenging with this wax. This is the final effect, you all. I'm so delighted with how these came out. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I'm sending all of you peace, love, and light, and I'm wishing all of you happy candle making. I would like to take the time to thank my patrons for their incredible support. A massive shout out goes to Wendy, Nicole Rott, Nancy with All About Me Beauty Bar, Merle, Brad with Neon City Scents, Junelle, Michelle, Paula, Zahara with Crystalline Candle Co., Julie with B-Lux Candle Co., Jennifer with Bea Essentials, Selena with Banbury Street Creations, Andrea, Sue, Nick, Bruce, Emma, Flavia, Jennifer with Bittersweet Candle Co., Danielle, Anitra with Ninth and Maxwell, Matthew, Jindy, Lisa, Elizabeth, Tammy, Carol, Cheryl, Maya, Losa, Betty, Luzdari, Taichi, and John. Your support is deeply appreciated.